Social justice, 1, 2, 3. Woo, woo. I wanna be PC. Woo, woo. It's just the way to be for me and you. Woo, woo. Your hateful slurs are through. Woo, woo.
I call woo woo on you.
Woo, woo. We'll fight until you're PC black and blue.
Woo woo.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. I'm sure some of you have seen this or noticed the same thing I'm seeing, that DC Comics is becoming something that it wasn't in the not too just recent past. Before, Marvel Comics was jumping into all the, the virtue signaling and all that kind of nonsense. But as DC Comics has kind of driven their rates down and all the good established creators are moving out, and they brought in a ton of talent over from Marvel Comics. It kind of started with Bendis. He brought in a bunch of hacks, and we've seen more of the Marvel hacks kind of infiltrating their way into DC Comics and from other places. And we're seeing wholesale changes on characters. We're even seeing their characterization of what these characters believe in, what they stand for, and what they're trying to achieve completely changed by these new creators. Most specifically, I'm going to talk about Tom Taylor. We'll also talk about John Ridley. Not really so much of a Marvel guy, but he's a screenwriter, did 7 Years a Slave. He's also done some work with The Authority, and now he's did some pretty bad things to Superman, in my opinion. I've already talked about that. But now he's got I Am Batman, his new version of Batman, Jace Fox. And the latest issue, these guys are all showing their hands. That's the point here. That they're all telling you what they would do if they were superheroes. We're no longer getting the stories of Dick Grayson or Batman or John Kent as Superboy becoming Superman. We're getting the stories of Tom Taylor ascending to becoming a superhero. What would he do if he were a billionaire? What would he do if he was powered by a yellow sun and had all these powers? What kind of change would he affect on the world? Which is really changing and just absolutely distorting what DC Comics heroes have stood for. Superman could have taken over the world a long time ago if he really wanted to affect wide-scale change, right? Nobody could stop him. But he understood that he wanted to help people. He was there to save people. And that man themselves were going to make mistakes, and they were going to have to work that out. And he could have opinions, but he wasn't going to place himself in there to affect the kind of changes that you're going to see with John Kent, Dick Grayson, and Jace Fox as some of the newer heroes that are ascending up. Obviously, Dick Grayson's been around a long time. But this Dick Grayson that we met this week, you remember when Tom Taylor restarted Nightwing, he inherited $1 billion from Alfred. So not only was Dick Grayson raised by a billionaire, Bruce Wayne, he was raised by two billionaires. Both of his surrogate fathers were billionaires. In fact, Alfred, right? Alfred had been a billionaire for quite some time. Alfred had also lived in a house with a billionaire. He would know what money is worth and what kind of change money could affect. He gives it to Dick Grayson. And I remember when it happened, I was like, why even make this change? It doesn't make a lot of sense. So you're flipping Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson. Bruce Wayne's no longer a billionaire because Joker kind of stole it. Well, Catwoman kind of stole it and gave it to Lucius Fox, and he's not going to give it back. And now Dick Grayson's a billionaire. Okay, well, why did that happen? Well, we found out this week, and Dick Grayson, he schedules a news conference to talk to people, and he says, my name is Dick Grayson. I've just become a billionaire, but I don't believe any one person should have so much when so many have so little. So I'm giving it away. I've decided to use it to establish one of the world's largest self-sustaining, purely philanthropic foundations. And while there will be some programs helping in targeted areas elsewhere in the world, the bulk of the wealth will go directly into Blüdhaven. He literally was raised by two billionaires. Did he hate Bruce Wayne the whole time? Why didn't he ever mention to Bruce, Bruce, you should probably give all that money away. One person shouldn't have so much when so many have so little. And it really feels like he's saying something about Bruce here, which doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, there has certainly been contention between the two characters in the past, but I've never gotten the sense that Dick thought Bruce was a piece of crap because he was rich. But, that's essentially what Tom Taylor is saying here. And, he's gonna fix homelessness. Hey, that's a worthy goal. Guess what? If you could throw $1 billion at homelessness and solve it, there would be no homeless people in LA. They throw money hand over fist. Same thing in San Francisco. Dick Grayson grew up with billionaires. He would know this, that money doesn't solve all problems. And that's one of the weird things that we're seeing throughout the world, especially the Western world. There's so much envy that everybody wants to take from everyone else because they would know what to do better with that money. I find it very strange, when you look at a lot of sayings in the past, money is the root of all evil. There's a reason that saying has stood around so well. But also, there's a reason envy is one of the 7 deadly sins. There's a reason, envy is mentioned in the 10 Commandments. Do not covet your neighbor's stuff. Because it's also inherently evil. But, it's one of those things that everyone just kind of accepts. Like, yeah, I think it's okay if we go and take somebody else's stuff. In this case, it's not somebody else's stuff. It is, in fact, Dick Grayson's now, because he inherited it from Alfred. But the characterization here and the idea that Dick Grayson, growing up in the household that he did, would have no understanding of money and what you could do with it and how much change you can actually affect just with money is ridiculous. And we get into more a few pages later when he gets into some of the details of his program. And does this sound like Dick Grayson? We've been reading Dick Grayson for over 80 years. Does this sound like Dick Grayson? Is this out of the Dick Grayson, playbook? Or is this out of the Tom Taylor playbook, which I contend it is? Too many good people have fallen in Blüdhaven. It's time we caught them. Today, we begin working on public and affordable housing, access to employment, prisoner rehabilitation, public transportation, free renewable energy, healthcare, and a guaranteed living wage. And all those things sound great, right? Don't they? I wish we could give that to everybody. But it's been proven time and time again, if you throw money at these problems, it won't fix them. You want to look at, education. Every time we spend more money, for the most part, in cities on students, their actual performance goes down because money doesn't fix everything. And Dick Grayson would know this. But these aren't the words of Dick Grayson. This is what Tom Taylor would do if he inherited $1 billion from Alfred, which is stupid. Because Tom Taylor's not a comic book character. Nobody's been reading Tom Taylor stories for 80 years. No one gives a shit about Tom Taylor and the adventures that he would get into if he were a superhero. You're reading these things because I want a Dick Grayson story. Now we know why he gave him the $1 billion to begin with, just so he could do some virtue signaling within this issue of a comic book. Dick Grayson is one of the most selfless, giving characters in the entire DC universe. As far as all the heroes go, I personally think he's the most relatable at a human level because he's inherently good. He has flaws, he understands them, but he cares about people. You didn't need to give him $1 billion so you could virtue signal all these things for people to understand that about the character. He could go and try and tackle some of these problems, here and there within his comic book without money. And I think it would probably be even more effective to show him going out there and putting his own time and effort into it, rather than just throwing money at a problem. But it's lame. Do you read Nightwing stories so he can tackle affordable housing, access to employment, prisoner rehabilitation, public transportation, free renewable energy, healthcare, and a guaranteed living wage? That's why you read or you watch MSNBC. That's why you watch CNN. That's not why you read a Nightwing comic. Everybody likes Dick Grayson because he's a great character. And they know that. And that's why Tom King, might as well be Tom King. That's why Tom Taylor is using Nightwing as a vehicle to get his own message out and what he would do if he was a billionaire. And it's lame. And we're seeing this in other places as well. Recently in Superman, Son of Kal-El, where we see John Kent ascending to the role of Superman himself as Clark Kent is going off to Warworld. This is going to go sideways so bad. But we have a conversation between John Kent and Damian Wayne, in which case Tom Taylor. Tom Taylor once again shows his cards. There's a fire. John Kent sees that. He goes out there. He sees the source of the fire. He goes to fight it. It turns out there's a being out there that when they get stressed, they turn into combustible energy. They start a big forest fire. And I think it wasn't all that well written, but I think what you're supposed to come away with was that global warming is what is setting the character off. And then when people are attacking him, it's making it worse. And he says, period, point blank to Damian. And I said, this is the making of a tyrant. This is where tyrannical governments and dictatorships come from. These kind of sentiments. He doesn't want to save people from fires anymore. He wants to fix the systems that create the fires. Right? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. We've seen this over and over throughout history. And we're definitely going down that road today. It's been absolutely insane seeing what's happening, just within America, the West, and everything that it represents is being ripped apart piece by piece. And every time you say something, you're told, get your panties out of a bunch. There's nothing to see here. You're overreacting. And then next thing you know, 2 years later, the entire foundation's been removed. You're overreacting the whole time. You're shouted down and stuff, but you can see what Tom Taylor is trying to put out here, right? It's no longer okay for a superhero to simply go save people. They have to fight injustices. And by injustices, I mean, income inequality, the pay gap. Are you kidding me? Who wants to see John Kent fight the pay gap? They tried this already in X-Men. Remember when they went to India and they tried to, nobody read it. People just absolutely vomited when they read it. And they dropped the series. And this is why Tom Taylor at Marvel was unreadable. Go read his X-Men Red. I dare you. It's vomit. It's trash. And that is what has been brought in to DC Comics as a Trojan horse in Deceased and Injustice, where, he decided he would write some good stories. A couple of Batman annuals that are pretty decent. He's used that as a Trojan horse to rebuild his reputation and then go right back to his old ways. Right back to just terrible comics that they're not telling the stories of the heroes. They're projecting and he's using the characters as a sounding board for his own ideology, his own points of view, and to get his own point across. I don't care what Tom Taylor thinks about any of this stuff. I am interested in what maybe Bruce Wayne or Dick Grayson think about it, but that would require Tom Taylor to not be lazy, to go out there and study the character and think about things from an alternative point of view, about how Bruce Wayne would think about all these issues, about how Dick Grayson could think about all these issues, and come to maybe a similar conclusion, but a different way of getting there, right? Because that would be within the character. These writers are too lazy to even do that much work. You don't mold the story to the character. You mold the character to the story. You mold the character to the message. And that's what's happening over and over. We saw it was essentially the downfall. Marvel's been bad for so long, and now DC Comics has imported that over to DC, and we're seeing the quality go down across the board. I mean, just think about what John Ridley's done to Superman, or at least, if you've read those, and if that was your first introduction to Superman, he is an awful character. He represents just awful things, and he was, forcibly raped in a prison camp. And now he's got this I Am Batman with Jace Fox. If you go read the Zero issue, which is awful. We talked about it on This Week in Batman last week. Period, point blank. Jace Fox says, I don't want to stop criminals. I want to fix systems. Same thing Tom Taylor's doing. They're importing all these things. You're no longer going to be reading the adventures of Clark Kent, Bruce Wayne, Diana Prince, Dick Grayson, Hal Jordan, Barry Allen, Wally West. You're reading the inner thoughts and the things that the writers want to get across, their own personal messages, the things that they really believe in, the things that they actually care about. They don't care about heroism. They don't want to tell the best heroic tales. They don't want to do something that maybe takes Bruce Wayne to the next level or challenges him in a new way within the confines of Gotham and the DC universe. They want to use Bruce Wayne to tell you that being a billionaire is bad. It's evil to make money. If you're a billionaire, you should feel bad for yourself. You've done something wrong, and you need to give it all back because you didn't deserve it in the first place. That's bullcrap. Hey, listen, I would love to be a billionaire. I'm never going to be. But I can acknowledge that the people that have gotten there have probably worked very hard. And guess what happens to billionaires that don't work hard and they make bad investments? They become millionaires, and then they become 100,000aires, and then they become normal people. They lose all their money. It takes a lot of hard work to keep $1 billion. Most people, when they make that much money, they don't just put it in the bank. There isn't a bank that has enough money to hold that. You know how many accounts that you would have for like the FDIC standards to actually have it all insured? You have to have all that stuff in investments. You have to be smart with your money. You literally can't just sit on it. Let's say you took out all your money, you put it in your house. What if it caught on fire? Nobody's going to insure a house for $1 billion cash. Are you crazy? I don't think people understand the things that you have to do to keep a hold of that $1 billion. You have to keep reinvesting it, and you have to keep it in the market because you literally can't just keep it in a bank. It's insane. No bank can actually insure it. You have to have like thousands upon thousands of accounts. Now, well, some people do have nesting. Of course, they have some in savings and stuff like that. But you can't have all. You have to keep the money churning. And I begrudge nobody's success. I don't want anybody else's stuff. I want my own success. You know, I look at other channels out there and I go, man, it'd be nice if I had the followership and the viewer counts. Guess what? I have to work harder. I have to keep trying, honing my craft, and maybe one day, if I work hard enough and if I'm able to reach out to people and they can understand what I'm trying to say and they can connect with me, I'll grow like that. But I don't want that handed to me. You think I want YouTube to go out there and be like, you know what? Ethan Van Sciver doesn't deserve all those subscribers. Wes deserves a portion of that too. Let's cut off 10% and give it to him. No, I don't want that. I want to work for it. I want to earn it just like he did. And that's how a lot of people should feel, but they don't. Everybody wants everything given to them nowadays. And that's a whole nother topic, and I've probably gone too far into it, but that's what we're getting here. Everybody's so envious of everyone else and what they've achieved, but they don't want to work for it. And here, what did Dick Grayson have to do for that $1 billion? He never worked for it. He never became a billionaire on his own merit. He inherited it from his surrogate father. And what's the first thing he did after Alfred entrusted him with all that money? Gives it away because he thinks somehow someone raised in a house with two billionaires thinks that you can just throw money at homelessness and solve it overnight, as if that's the root of the problem. There's so many things that go into a problem like that. It's not even funny. Oh yeah, if they had affordable housing, they wouldn't be homeless. No, there's a lot more to that situation. Now that would solve some of the population, but a lot of it has to do with mental health. A lot of people are on the run. They come from broken homes. They need a lot of care outside of just affordable housing. You have to invest a lot of these things. And cities have tried, like I said, LA, San Francisco, they have pumped a lot of money into trying to solve these problems. They only make it worse. Not only for the people that they're trying to help, they make it worse for everybody else. Government is the ultimate like antithesis of an actual solution to anything. Because they think you just throw money into something, it'll work. That's why charities have always been more successful at solving problems within communities than government programs. Because they know they have limited resources and they have to get the most bang for their buck. And they have to help the most people because that's their mission. It's not the government's mission. The government's mission is there to sustain itself. So they do these programs so people can keep voting them into office. It's crazy, but that's where we're headed for DC Comics. We're not headed there. That's where we are. Not surprisingly, Bruce Wayne's not a billionaire anymore. Dick Grayson was a billionaire, immediately gave all his money away because he thinks if you throw money at problems, it'll solve it. John Kent no longer wants to follow in his father's footsteps. He's seen the flaw in his ways. He's not going to save people from fires. He's going to fix the things that are causing fires. Global warming and other problems. Jace Fox doesn't want to stop criminals. He wants to fight systems. Do you see it yet? Have you seen it yet? I mean, come on. What just happened with Tim Drake? We got to retcon him out because he's got to be more representative, right? We need to get more representation here. We can't create anything new. We have to take everything that exists and bend it to the will of the writer. No longer bending the story to the will of the character, and what they've represented for years, and what has been the groundwork that has been laid for years that people have been coming in and spending their money on. That's no longer the point of DC Comics. That's not the point of Marvel Comics. The point is to tell you how to think. The point is to take these heroes and bend them and break them and just regurgitate things out. So you will accept all these things when you're seeing them, throughout society today. Stop being an unwitting accomplice. You have to point these things out. And it's just too bad. I didn't think DC could. Oh, all right. I knew DC Comics would get there. I just didn't realize it was going to be this fast. You know what I mean? It's like when you see one of your kids and you're like, well, I knew he was going to grow up, but I didn't want it to happen now. I knew DC Comics was going to just fuck over all its fans and really destroy the characters. I just didn't think I didn't want it to happen so early. How's that? That's how I feel about it.